Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
We welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Friday, April the 2nd. I'm Gary Stevens. First Friday of the month, our 9:30 segment, we devote to spotlighting the Holland Department of Public Safety, either through its police department or its fire services. Last month, we had, I believe, Bob Bursma joining us from police. So it's time to put the spotlight on our brave men and women who dash in when others are dashing out in fires and flames, and maybe even saving a stray kitty or a stray dog from time to time. Bret Groendyke, the fire marshal for the city of Holland, is on the other end of our Zoom connection. Bret, good morning.
Good morning, Gary. How are you doing today?
We are well.
Good to hear.
There was a story, and I want to start on a little bit of a lighter note. A story this week out of, and I believe it was Florida. Not certain. I forgot the exact state, but a woman couldn't find her cat, a 26-pounder, big kitty. Cat got stuck in a chimney in the neighbor's house that was under construction. Methinks the cat was thinking it was Santa. If Santa can go down the chimney, so can the cat. Do you have a humorous animal rescue story from your records or what has happened, especially recently with the Holland Department of Public Safety's fire services?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, we always have stories where we help out animals, but we've gotten ducks out of storm drains. And it's funny when you talk about cats being trapped in places because it's not something that we commonly do. I mean, you don't normally see cats in trees for an extended period of time. They usually make their way down on their own. But there was a time where myself and it was Lieutenant Stokes, we were working together, and we ran in the same shift. We ran 2 cats trapped in trees, which was very unusual. And he's quite the climber, Lieutenant Stokes, and he got both of them down. And the one cat actually did not want to be up in the tree and climbed right onto his shoulder. And he climbed down the tree and the cat sat right on his shoulder. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering if you'd had to use the ladder and ratchet up and all that because let's put it this way. Climbing trees is good when you're young. When you get a little older, now let the young kids do all the climbing.
Yes, yeah. You get the jaws of life to take people out of cars, and you get the paws of life to get up that tree. It all works out.
Good way of putting it. If you had a question for Bret Groendyke, a little lighter or a little bit serious, he'll be happy to take it at 395-1450, 395-1450. Let's start with the breaking. Well, I wouldn't say breaking because it was a day ago that it did occur. A house fire. Fortunately, it was not a serious one in the sense that there wasn't a loss of life or an injury. The occupants left were already out of the residence before they made the 911 call, and which is, to be a certain extent, that's the ideal situation. But in situations such as house fires, especially if it is a case where maybe some people are inside and they don't know it, that becomes a little bit of a dicey situation.
It does. I agree 100%. And when we have reports where people are trapped, one of the things that we focus on the most is getting to those people, and a good 911 call that gives very good directions from the caller. That is extremely helpful. Another thing that's extremely helpful is a clearly marked address that we can see as responders from the street. And this is something that we've been working on. And one of our firefighters, Matt Jones, he has been working on a project. He's one of our community involvement firefighters. And he has been working on a project to create signs and make those signs available to Holland residents. And to your point, the focus that we're looking at here is these fires double in size about every minute. And if you have an open floor plan in your home, they can double in about 30 seconds. And it's not just fires that we're worried about. We're also worried about medical emergencies, cardiac arrest, for example. And when there's no oxygen supply to the brain, we're talking severe damage after about 3 minutes. So that's why these address signs are so important. And it's important for us to see the address. They get covered by vegetation and landscaping and maybe some remodel work. And so it's important for us to be able to see that. So Matt recognized that. We put together a program we now offer these reflective address signs from the fire department. And we do them at a cost of, it's $15 for the sign. And that is just to replace the cost of what it takes to, the materials that's associated with it. And then the additional post to plant it at your house would be $20. And so we've recognized that this is a problem. We're looking to, make a resolution. One of the things that's nice about all of our firefighters is when you recognize a problem, it's like, well, what can we do to try to solve it? And address signs and quick locations, that's one of the most important things. You can find more information on that on the Holland Fire Department website. There's a link there, and there's also a very good pamphlet that was put together and a video to get some more information on that.
395-1450, 395-1450. If you have a question about fire safety, fire prevention, or other related matters with Bret Groendyke, he is the fire marshal for the city of Holland, 395-1450. It's something that we normally bring out when we get to snow situations, and obviously we're going out of a snow situation now. We don't have to worry about it until October, November, but it is the fire hydrants and keeping them clear. It's one thing to park in front of a hydrant. You don't want that, but it's another thing to keep it clear, even in the warmer weather, because you got grass that grows up around there, and, trying to get that thing open and you got grass in the middle of it, it makes it kind of tough.
It does. There's always something in front of it. I mean, if it isn't snow, it's a car or, to your point, grass, vegetation, things like that. So there should be 3 feet of clearance around all the hydrants, 3 feet of clearance. And that ensures that we can get in there and get access to it. The valves on all sides, or the valve on the top, and then the outlets on all 3 sides. And it ensures that we can get there quickly, because to your point that you brought up earlier, we did have the fire yesterday. So it is critical that we can get a water supply very quickly, so we can support the suppression efforts that are going on inside the house. And that was, it was a very smoky fire yesterday, but the crews that were on the inside, it was extremely hot. So if those that were seeing the fire from the outside, were seeing just a limited amount of smoke, there was quite a bit of involvement that had taken place in the attic of that home. And so a lot of that fire, that suppression effort was all interior. And so that was what was going on inside that house.
Now, the other question about hydrants is some communities have little flags on the top of the hydrants, and a lot of those flags are in hydrants that maybe are set quite a ways away from a street or a road. That could be the hydrant itself could be covered up by snowfall, especially in a rural situation. Does Holland have a lot of those little flags, or because it's a more of an urban setting, you really don't need all those flags?
Well, they're still there. And as you kind of make your way around town, you'll see that the flags are on there. And that's because, we're in a lake effect snow belt. And the reality is still there that we can get these major snowfalls. And then as the plows move to try to keep the roads open, which we also need, then you're going to get these piles that occur. And so those flags are there so that we can see them and very quickly identify them, get them dug out, get things moved around them. But also to kind of, keep other, maybe some of the landscaping companies or private plow drivers, they can see those, try to avoid piling snow on top of them. Our Ottawa County, the dispatching system, they network with us. And so we actually use mapping software, and we see where a lot of these hydrants are supposed to be, and they can communicate that information to us during a response. And so when those hydrants aren't there, it creates a pretty critical water supply issue that has to be resolved immediately.
Speaking about water supply issues, I know, and we're speaking on April 2, so it's not a big factor, but if we speak, say, on July 2 or August 2, we know some neighborhoods, not so much in Holland, but maybe in other communities, some neighborhoods, somebody opens up the fire hydrant to get the kids cool. Nice idea for the kids, not so nice for firefighters.
Yeah. some of them, I mean, we'll get calls for leaks of hydrants, and those can be, throughout the year. What we try to do is when the weather gets nice, and unfortunately we weren't able to do it last year, but we'll get out there and we'll get the hydrants opened up and we'll get a diverter on that 2.5 barrel and we'll get water running. We've done that at Moran Park. Some of the neighborhood block parties that we do. I mean, fingers crossed. We really enjoy being able to get out there and do that. I mean, it makes the neighborhoods love it. We love to see people happy like that. So hopefully this summer we can get out there and get back to that, because that was a lot of fun. It always has. So.
Yeah, those are nice because the fire department knows they're doing it, and they know that if we need that water for a blaze. Sorry, I got to end the fun. We got work to do.
Yeah,
but we see some neighborhoods where they just do it on their own because it's just too hot and they are too far away from the water, and causes all sorts of mayhem and mischief. 395-1450, 395-1450. If you have a question for Bret Groendyke, he'll be happy to answer it. He is the fire marshal for this city of Holland. When there is a fire, and I'm going to use yesterday's fire as an example, when you and others that need to investigate sources and causes of fire, how much of a factor is it when you're starting to look for a cause of the fire and you're trying to get evidence, but all of a sudden, I can't figure this out because the damage was too great, or maybe in our haste to try to get this flame put out, it's sort of hampering our efforts to try to figure out exactly what happened. Is that still a factor, or is that really, overplayed on my part in terms of over imagining in situations such as yesterday's?
No, in the situation with yesterday, that was a pretty direct, pretty evident. When we talk about fire, it's where did the fire originate? And then you begin looking around that immediate area for potential causes. To your point, there's evidence that you rule in, there's evidence that you rule out. And if there's ever anything that I have any questions on, or that as a department that we have any questions on, we contact the Michigan State Police and we work with them. They also have fire investigators. They have an entire fire investigation division that they have that we work together on. And they're great because they bring in a lot of resources that we do not have access to, accelerant detection canines. And just a whole host of technology labs, things like that. So if there's ever anything that we have any sort of a doubt on, we start calling in extra sets of eyes and minds to commit to that. But it is interesting that you bring that up, the causes of fires, because again, we look at the point of origin, we look at, okay, what was around that? And today my thought was, well, I can talk about some of these causes, and the reality is we've had 12 working fires since January 1 of this year, which is a lot. And when I go back through and I look at those causes, because we keep track of the data on this, it's smoking, it's electrical, but the reality is a lot of it is some complacency and some denial that well, I don't think this is going to happen in my house. And the reality is the majority of the fires that probably nearly all the fires that we've seen this year is folks that thought, well, I don't think that's going to happen in my house. So I don't have good answers as to why this is occurring, but the best way that we can fight that is, number one, conversations like this, and to educate people and to try to teach people in ways to avoid fires in their homes.
Yeah, one of the ways that you can avoid fire in your home is, especially during Christmas time, don't overload the outlet. I got 5 things plugged into one of the little things in the bus, so power strip and all that. That could cause mayhem and mischief there. The other one, and this is a year-round thing, folks. If you got a dryer, clean the lint out after every time. Because more often than not, if you have a dryer fire, it's because lint has been building up, and it can go poof like that.
Agreed. Yeah, we've seen a couple of those this year. The other leading causes of fire that we continue to see in the city is smoking or discarded smoking materials. That tends to be an ongoing issue. We encourage people to not smoke. It's the easiest way to avoid that fire risk. And if you do smoke, put your ashes out in something metal with water in it or sand in it, and make sure it's outside the home and that the cigarettes are completely out. We've had a surprising rise in discarded smoking material fires over last year and this year. It's our second leading cause of fires in the city. That's definitely a concern we're trying to combat.
Peg McNichol has a question from the WHTC newsroom. Peg.
Hello. My quick question is related to dryers because I had a cousin out in Washington State who said his dryer wasn't working particularly well. It was 10 or 15 years old. And so he had a worker come out, a repairman. Now, this is a cousin who's just like routinely cleans the lint catcher, right?
Sure. Yeah.
The drum was surrounded by lint, and the repairman told him that happens. And so I'm just wondering, how often should people have somebody come in and get the drum and the innards of your dryer cleaned out from that stray lint that builds up over time?
Well, good morning, Peg. And it's different dryers are going to be different ways. I imagine that older dryers are going to have more gaps to allow that lint to propagate throughout that space. One of the other areas that you can clean out and that we encourage people to clean out is the vent pipe that runs from the dryer to the outside of the house. That's one of the more common places to get that, or that you're going to get that buildup at. I try to clean that at least 4 times a year just to get that material out of there, because as you go to the outside of the house, you'll find that catch basin that's there right at where the outlet is for the dryer or for the vent. And if that's got a lot of material in it, you're not getting good ventilation appropriately. So you're going to continue to get that buildup. But it is that primary, at least in my experience, where I've seen the majority of those fires, it's been in that primary trap. So with the majority of the materials being caught there, I think you're doing pretty good, but don't neglect the vent pipe that goes to the outside of the residence.
One more investigative question, I think, from my quarter here, Brent, is the fact of dealing with what used to be called firebugs, arsonists. Have they gotten more sophisticated over the years, or has the advances in fire investigation made arson maybe not so much a desirable crime as maybe a generation or 3 before?
That's tough. In 2019, we saw probably our highest rate of intentionally set fires, arson being the crime that one is convicted of. And then from an investigative standpoint, we make efforts based on the evidence, as we were discussing earlier. We make efforts to determine, does the evidence indicate that this was an intentionally set fire, or was this fire accidental? So take some of our recent fires that we've had in the city. In those incidents, the evidence overwhelmingly indicates from interviews, photos that a lot of the public collects, and that's very helpful in our investigation. And just the immediate area around where the fire started, we can usually make a pretty good, have a pretty good understanding of what took place at that point. With arson fire, with intentionally set fires where there's human involvement, there's a different pattern of evidence that's found. You may find that ignitable liquids have been used in places where you wouldn't plan on them being used at, multiple fires that have been set inside of a building, fire behavior that's abnormal. So we look at all these different evidence patterns, but to the nuts and bolts of your question, is it different? I mean, fire burns the same way today as it burned yesterday, as it burned 5,000 years ago. You need oxygen, you need heat, you need an ignition source, and it's gonna sustain itself. And you need a fuel to burn. And once you have those things, I mean, you're gonna get a fire at that point. So if you can drill down to that core understanding of what it takes to get a fire going, those 3 elements, that fuel, oxygen, and heat, I mean, what put it there then is the question.
Yeah, I'm just saying that maybe, we've gotten a little bit more sophisticated in terms of those who are trying to commit this sort of intentional fire, and it's not as, Yeah, as you said, there was more than before, but yet we're not getting a lot of reports of these firebugs. Maybe it's less dramatized now than it was
Fortunately
years
for
ago.
everyone, yeah.
You got that right. 395-1450. I do want to end our conversation, Brett, on a good note in terms of getting people to get their smoke detectors working well, make sure they're in the right spots. Sometimes, even if you don't have it, say, in the kitchen, and you're not supposed to have a smoke detector really in the kitchen, but you have in a hallway near the kitchen, all of a sudden, you overcooked the hot dogs. You got to clean that up. But anyway, fire. The fire detectors are very important any time of year, even now as we're getting into nicer weather.
Yeah, one in every sleeping area, one on every level of your home. So if you've got a 2-story home, one on the main floor, one on the upstairs, preferably at the top of the stairs, you're going to get that chimney effect that occurs with smoke movement. So again, anywhere where you're sleeping, they should be functional in terms of having a good battery. They should be clean, so there's not a lot of buildup around them or the sensor. As we get into the more humid times of the year, we tend to get some false alarms at night with that humidity or little spider webs that have built up in there over the indoor seasons the indoor time of the year that we have. But yeah, make sure they're in every sleeping area, one in every level. That includes the basement, the mechanical space. It's critical that folks have those in their homes.
And of course, the detectors now are becoming a little bit more sophisticated and making it more reasonably priced for the more sophisticated detectors that can detect not only smoke, but also carbon monoxide, which is as dangerous as any smoke situation because it's odorless and it's colorless and you can't smell it, you can't see it. And all of a sudden we have issues. It's
true. Yeah. Carbon monoxide, which is also a product of combustion. It's in the smoke. So that you'll get carbon monoxide when you see that big, that rich plume of that dark, heavy gray or black smoke that you'll see billowing. That the two most prominent products of combustion there are carbon monoxide and hydrogen cyanide. So those are the things that when that smoke alarm goes off, it's telling you that if there truly is a fire in your home, that smoke is a poison. There's carbon monoxide in it and there's hydrogen cyanide in it. And the goal is to get you as far away from those toxic twins as possible.
One quick question before we go. Good morning. You're on the line with the fire marshal.
Good morning. How are you?
We're good.
What's the best way to get off of an upper story if the fire's in the main level and there's no fire escape in the home?
All right. We'll get the question. You can listen off the air. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Brett.
So a couple things. One, best thing practice you can possibly do is if you're on an upper floor, sleep with your door closed. Look for alternatives in terms of having the roof. If you've got a roof that leads off your bedroom window, anything like that. But the main thing that you want to do is sleep with your door closed, have a phone in the place where it is that you're sleeping so that you can call and tell us. Again, this goes back to the address discussion that we had earlier, but tell us where you're at and be specific in terms of where you're at in your home. So sleep with your door closed, have a phone with you, and then look for alternative means of access out onto a roof if possible.
Yeah, sometimes you have to sort of plan ahead for those escape situations. Appreciate the call. Bret Groendyke, the Holland Fire Marshal, thank you very much for joining us again on Talk of the Town. Look forward to chatting with you again later this year.
Thanks, Gary. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bret Groendyke on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.